Welcome, horror fans, to HHN365, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast. As always, my name is Mike, and I'm here with my co-host, Duff.
Hey, guys.
We make up your host team. We have a special treat for you today. We've been talking about it basically since the beginning.
Literally since our first episode.
We've been teasing it. We have our first house dissection.
Oh, I'm excited. You want to tell them a little bit about what a house dissection is?
Yes. So house dissection is basically we're going to take each house from each year. We're not going to go back to the previous years probably, but
yeah, this is going to be like a moving forward
type of thing.
Maybe we'll pick like kind of like best houses ever and like pick on them.
Definitely, I think some of our favorite houses we might go back and do a dissection, but for the most part, it's just going to be kind of like a mover forward type of thing. So we're going to go back and take a look at HHN29 while we're getting ready for 30. So we're going to start with the first one. Before we get to that, so house dissections are basically going to be a way for that we can preserve the house. Because, we're not really supposed to film in them. Yes, there are videos out there, mostly from Media Night, that they cut out a lot of the rooms and many of the houses.
At least for Orlando.
For Orlando. So they're not really a great way to preserve them. I figured out that this would be a good way, at least. I'm an auditory person. I love podcasts, so this would be a fun way for people who really want to relive them while you're driving to work, or if you didn't get to experience the event at all, this would be a fun way to let two guys nerd out about them and listen about it.
Well, we'd still recommend going and watching the POV if you did not experiencing it. This is going to be a much more detailed version of what you'll get to see, as a lot of rooms are cut per universal policy during the media events.
Right, and sometimes the POV, the light's not great, the qualities aren't that great, the sound's not that great. We're going to try to talk about everything you would experience going to these houses multiple times. You would have picked up on. All right, so do we want to reveal what house we're doing for this one?
You know what? Let's do it. Let's just tell them right now.
So we wanted to start with a bang.
So I think we've talked about this very recently, the last episode.
Yes.
Was this not named House of the Decade by both of us?
No, it wasn't my
No,
house
you
of
were
the
right.
decade.
You were number...
It was number two. It was number two.
Number two. Number one for me. Number one all time for me.
Yes.
Actually, I announced.
Yes.
That's Graveyard Games.
Graveyard Games, yes. So definitely, probably our favorite house of HHN29.
Oh yeah, we already announced that.
Lots of fun things about it. I thought this would be a great house to kind of show exactly what a house dissection looks like. Where it's going to have a pretty solid structure about how we kind of wrote up an outline of things we wanted to go, starting kind of all from pre-announcement rumors and leading up to date announcements, that type of thing. If you didn't get to follow any of it, we're going to kind of go about how it was all revealed to us throughout the year.
Yeah, literally every aspect of the house, in the house, outside the house, promotion for the house. We're talking about it today. But how about before we do that, we do have a little news. Yeah. Now, let me tell you guys, this time of year, news isn't confirmed news. Right. It's mainly rumors. Yes. And we're not just... We're going to have segments where we talk about rumors. Right. But anything we include in this news segment is going to be more like, this is reoccurring rumors, and a lot of people are talking about it.
And we're going to call it a rumor still.
Yeah, it's still a rumor. It's not confirmed by any way.
Announced, we'll tell you.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so this is a strong rumors, I would say.
And we have two of them today, actually. The first one is a little bit newer. So I'd like to start out by saying, if we ever have a rumor from a specific source, we will give credit to that source. This rumor, and actually both rumors we're talking about today, are from many different people. We don't know where it started, so we're not going to give anyone specific credit and steal from someone else. So we're just going to tell you what many people have been saying. Right. The first one is, apparently Academy of Villains have been offered to come back to Halloween Horror Nights. However, not at the Fear Factor stage. Ooh. It would be at one of the in-park stages. We're assuming the normal temporary location. So that kind of leads into the Bill and Ted returning rumor, which is more just speculation because anniversary year.
Right.
They got the movie coming out this year.
Those post surveys that people got.
The surveys. So that just kind of, it really feeds that when they say, Academy of Villains, you can come back, but you don't get Fear Factor stage.
Right.
Because we already have something else planned for that.
Yeah. Again, this is not confirmed.
No, this is, but it has come. We've heard it from
couple of people.
There's a good amount of people saying it. I don't know how many actually heard it, and how many are just regurgitating it.
Right.
However, it's definitely around. I wouldn't doubt that this one is false, or I wouldn't doubt that this one is real, because I think Bill and Ted's coming back this year.
Yes.
It makes too much sense not to.
Yeah, this rumor started during HHN29.
It did.
I think the post surveys really started that. Okay, maybe Academy Villain does come back, but not necessarily on the same stage.
Yeah.
And then maybe we do see. So this has been rumbling for a while.
And apparently it's actually being heard now that the offer has been extended to Academy of Villains.
Right.
They've been told it won't be Fear Factor. So we'll see what happens with that. Even if that is the case, does that definitely mean Bill and Ted's coming back?
Maybe not. Maybe it's another show.
Maybe something different.
Yeah.
Maybe they actually finally have something else down the pipeline for Fear Factor stage where it won't exist.
Maybe we get some sort
which
of
people talked about for a while. Yeah,
maybe we get
we don't
Icon
know.
show. Who knows? What
Typically, Icon shows will take place at the in-park stages.
Right.
But you never know.
You never know.
It's HHN30, big anniversary.
Who knows what we'll see?
I still think Bill and Ted will be there.
Me too.
And this just kind of confirms that for me a little bit more. But we'll see what really happens there.
All right. What's rumor number 2?
So the second rumor we have, and this one is, it's not speculation, but this is literally carrying over from HHN29, which has started from people hearing from, I know RIP tour guides on multiple occasions had said that they were working on so-and-so house already by October, whatever the day was. And they mentioned out of 11 houses. And then there's some people coming in now saying they've heard, oh yeah, there's 11 houses. This one is a little less concrete, and where what the sources are.
Right.
I've heard a couple people say the same things about my RIP tour guide said so, and you don't know do they have that information as an RIP tour guide? Have they heard it potentially? Do they know people working on the event? Yeah, it's very possible.
Could just be a slip of the tongue, honestly, when it comes to RIP.
But it's kind of like that whole Disney, the bus driver told me thing,
Yeah.
Is it that, or is this kind of happening and just kind of slipped, like you said?
Right.
Was it discussed but not definitely happening? So the RIP tour guide heard this, it was a possibility.
Right.
Just kind of slipped out.
Right.
We don't know. We have no actual insight into this one whatsoever.
No, we don't.
All I know is that as of now, Universal came out and stated they will have 10 houses. But we also know they said a date range, and that's already changed from when they first announced it. I don't think anything right now that they've said is set in stone.
Right.
But this one is more of just kind of a lot of people saying, I've heard this, I've heard that. I think there's a lot of regurgitation going on at this point.
Right.
But that's the rumor right now. 11 houses is one of the big rumors out there.
Awesome. Well, should we hop into our dissection?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So we've already said it. It's going to be Graveyard Games is the house. That is from HHN 29, 2019. So leading into kind of rumors and of HHN 29, very early on there was rumors and links swirling around a house that was codenamed Ghosts in the Graveyard, and that led into casting for this house of Ghosts in the Graveyard, but all these other houses were being announced, and there was no house that fit that description up until August 8th, 2019. We finally got revealed the original house called Graveyard Games, and then we finally got, this is Ghosts in the Graveyard.
And I gotta say, the initial reception from fans wasn't that excited.
No.
Because, it's a very simple story for a Halloween Horror Nights type event.
Right.
A hunt. It's
It
a
seemed kinda
graveyard,
generic,
it's
to be
ghosts.
honest with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did.
It didn't seem very too exciting. I don't think most people were too excited about it.
Just because the story was, it's a hunt. That's easy. But then there were a few people, I don't know their names, but on forums and social media I did see that called it. And they were like, listen, this is easy pickings. They should be able to nail this. Right. This has potential to be really good just 'cause it's such an easy concept for a hunt. So, little mixed, but I'd say for the most part, people were. Right. It wasn't high on their anticipation list and their hype lists.
Yeah. So they revealed that and us, and then basically they hadn't revealed the shows yet, and then they revealed the shows, and then it was go time.
That was one of the last things.
It was one of the last things. Other than the shows, I know people are like, "What are they going to do with shows?" And then they announced the 2 shows, and then it was go time. So it was located in the Parade Warehouse. Notable previous houses in the same location are like Scary Tales from 2008, Silver Screams from 2009, The Hollowed Past from 2010, Forsaken, Roanoke, Trick or Treat. Those are kind of the highlights. It's the first year was
in there.
First year that ever been in there was 2008, and then it's been one in there ever since. They built a whole new parade building as well.
Where you would have seen Universal Monsters
this year. That one's much more of a newer one.
Oh, yeah.
This one's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Ads, TV spots, nothing really, no ads or TV spots. You don't really see those for the original houses too often.
No, and if you did see anything like that, let us know, because we never saw anything. We even did a little searching to make sure we didn't miss anything. We didn't find anything, so we're pretty confident that there was no kind of advertisement for this house outside of the announcement.
Right. Now, there was social media integration. So, along with that press release on August 8th announcing the house, it revealed the house would have an online interactive element. It stated, quote, "In the Ascension Parish Cemetery, it's normal to find teens playing amongst the tombstones. You'll find yourself witnessing the repercussions of disrespectful antics of two teens who have awakened the spirits of the dead. As you roam through the cemetery, you'll wind through dark mausoleums and decaying piles and coffins. Ghosts of every shape and form will rise from the tombstones to exact revenge as you try to escape in a maze of crumbling tombstones and mausoleums. Skeletal beings, ghastly apparitions, vengeful spirits will try to drag you to the grave, and in the end you'll find what happens to set out who deface the cemetery. Before you enter the haunted house, take the opportunity to chat with a few local teens and storytellers of the town. Starting September 6th, all you need is your phone and the Facebook Messenger to the Halloween Horror Nights page. You'll learn the history of spooky legends and the cemetery keeps. Better be prepared for what awaits than finding yourself coming to a dead end." Duff, I know you were really into doing this beforehand. Tell us a little bit what happened.
Yeah, so honestly, I wasn't too excited about this aspect. I thought it was cool, and I thought it would be fun as a one-time thing. What I learned is that this could go on forever. You could chat with them. It just never stopped. I never came to an end. I don't know if anyone ever came to a complete end, because it
just kept going.
Because it was one of those things where you hit a certain part of the story, like, do you want to hear about this or do you want to hear about this? And you could take it so many different ways. And really, the amount of details there are, I cannot even begin to cover how in depth they are in this episode. That's something where you can probably find some transcripts online, where I recommend, if you're interested in the backstory, go check it out. But I can give you a brief overview of what it was about.
Sure.
So basically, you're chatting with 3 main people. You're going to talk to Tommy, who is a kid who hangs out in the cemetery, which, according to the stories you hear, are pretty common there. Kids go, they hang out there. Normal thing kids do, I guess. I didn't hang out in a cemetery, but
I've never done that.
I guess that's what happens in the Ascension Parish.
Yeah, it sounds like there's not much to do.
Yeah, no. Then you also hear from Nancy, who's going to be one of the main characters you hear about throughout the house. She's pretty much just a bully, and she kind of just talks down to everyone else in the chat. The final main person you'll hear from is Tommy's grandpa, Gramps. Now, Gramps basically is going to act as the storyteller throughout this time. So he's going to tell you all the myths, the legends, or what you would think are myths and legends. So basically, what you're going to hear from Gramps in his stories is that you talk about Evangeline Albright. So basically, she was a woman. She married a lot of rich men. While she was married to these rich men, they ended up dying.
Okay. We've heard it sounds familiar.
Yeah, right. Now, Evangeline also really wanted a child. Unfortunately for her, she was unable to bear children. Now, she decides to spend all this money she's made inheriting from her dead husbands. However they died. Who knows? Could be accidents. She decides to build a cemetery. This is going to be the cemetery that you enter, the Ascension Parish Cemetery. So basically, she built this laid out. It's a multitude of circles, all within one another. Funnily enough, as she passes away, she is buried here. You'll hear some legends from Grandpa saying that she is still seen to this day. Many of the children that hang out will see her. She glows, so she took on the name Glowing Mother. Why did she take on the name Glowing Mother, Mike? You may wonder.
I do wonder.
This is because apparently there was quite a large amount of children who were buried at this cemetery. Remember when we were talking about earlier she could not bear children but really wanted them? She's basically taken on a mother role over these children buried at this cemetery.
Gotcha.
Now, along with the children who go there just to hang out, there are a lot of teens who go there. Teens aren't like the kids. They like to vandalize. These teens who go and vandalize do not come back. They end up passing away on their ventures out to the cemetery. If these stories are to be believed, the Glowing Mother took their lives for messing with her cemetery.
Gotcha. So that's kind of the backstory that was revealed in the social media integration. Let's go into another category. Overall popularity, wait times, and overall reception of the house throughout the event.
I'd say as far as like the popularity and wait time averages, it's definitely in the upper tier of HHN29. It usually carried one of the higher weights.
Right.
At least in the upper half, you'd say.
It was definitely not the top one or
No,
two. I would say it's like 3 or 4. In general, wait times were not too bad this year for whatever reason.
Yeah, they were very concentrated to Stranger Things. Ghostbusters sometimes. Basically, the norm. They hit the big IPs.
Right.
And then it just depends on what time of day, because in a path that's set for them.
I would say an average wait time we would find for this house was about 45 minutes.
Yeah, probably. Right? That's kind of like, I don't think I ever saw it above 90. I think that's kind of like it, whereas you saw others, Stranger Things 300 minutes.
That was its average time. It was like 90
at least
90. Yeah, you never saw it below 90 really.
No. So it wasn't too bad of waits, but still in the upper half of last year's event.
Right.
As far as reception goes, I'd say it's very strong.
Right. Yes. Definitely among the community.
Yeah, among the community, very much so. A lot of people within the Horror Nights community had it as their top or one of their top 2 houses.
Right.
But the impressive thing is that it seemed that even the general public really did enjoy this house. Which, like we were saying before, the big IPs get the big weights and typically get the bigger reaction out of the general public. However, Graveyard Games did as well this time.
Right. Oh, so moving on to themed merch. There was really no exclusive themed merch for this house.
Nope.
You don't really see it for originals too often.
Not anymore, at least.
Not anymore, yeah. So then the Q/outside side facade. There's really nothing special about the Q necessarily. And then the outside facade on the outside of the building of the warehouse, they had the Facebook feed that kind of told a little bit more of the story. And then it had just kind of the logo projection of the Glowing Mother to kind of start revealing her a little bit. That was about it going on outside, right?
Yeah, I mean, because basically, if you know what the Parade Warehouse queue is like, it's like it has been every year. You basically come through Kid Zone, and then it's a long straightaway to the house entrance. And that's what it was this year. It's basically 2 lanes, one entering, one exiting most of the way.
Yeah, not a lot of switchbacks, just kind of like straight shot.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so not much to it. I feel like in this location, there's usually not much of an outside facade or anything additional to the queue. Kind of touching on the Facebook feed being projected along the parade warehouse, though. So it basically went through the 3 characters you can talk to across Messenger and shows different messages that you don't see through them when you're talking to them. You'll even see videos that Sid and Nancy have taken. Some of them laughing about the situation they're in, others of them being pretty scared of something.
Right.
We don't really know what yet, but there's definitely some ominous moments across that Facebook feed.
Right. So then you then enter the building, and you're immediately greeted by gates.
I feel like we should mention it's not actually Facebook, by the way.
It's not.
It just looks exactly like a Facebook feed.
Well,
it was a generic social media
that
Facebook type feed.
Yeah, I mean, it was Friendster.
Yes,
it was Friendster.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Friendster.
Friendster.
Yeah. So then you enter the building, and you're immediately greeted by the Paris Cemetery gates. You slowly approach the gates because this was so slow moving all the time. I think that's something that has to be said, is just due to how scary it was, and a room that will reveal at the end.
There's a large reason that this gets backed up.
It was always backed up, and you would just be so slow going through this, and it started basically from the beginning. You entered through the gates, and then there was immediately a scare onto your left, which was Sid revealing himself with cans of spray paint, and there was an air trigger, so he kind of blows it into your face, and he calls you a dork for getting scared, and he laughs, and then he kind of turns around and resets, and he just keeps doing that.
Yep. And honestly, for being as simple of a scare as it is, had some good results. I didn't see too many people fall this year. I saw multiple people fall from that scare.
Yeah,
surprising.
It's so quick. You don't normally see.
It's very quick. It's a very open space that's scenic. I feel like it that early. Just because it feels like just the first facade. It basically is. There's usually not a scare, right? Because it is. So he is positioned as soon as you walk in.
Right. And he's hidden by the gates.
Yeah.
So you cannot see him.
So there's a good chance. There's a decent gap between his scares. So there's a good chance you're just taking your time, taking things in, and next thing you know, he's in your face, shaking a spray can at you, calling you a dork.
Blowing it in the air trigger. It blows air right in your face.
And the great thing is, like, he had a little bit of freedom. So sometimes he'd kind of, like, if he really got someone, he'd also follow them a little bit further down and keep picking on them. So I enjoy when they have freedom like that, and he played it really well. He was a great character.
All right. Then also in this inside facade, you kind of saw just like tombstones, and there was like flashlights kind of going across the ground. There was vines kind of hanging off of it. It kind of looks unkempt.
Definitely overgrown.
Then you kind of start approaching a mausoleum arch that you go under. Then you are kind of into transition hallway into room 2.
Yes.
And that's when you're going to start seeing graffiti. It's very dark and kind of stays dark. There's like anarchy symbols, RIP, lots of just generic like X's on the wall. Something that we notice, it says CGRG is probably...
Which we feel like there's some kind of reference, not necessarily something that we were supposed to understand, but some sort of that makes sense to the creative team.
Yeah, some sort of hidden Easter egg, and maybe who knows what that means, but it's definitely right there. It's pretty prominent, so it probably means something. Then you what happens next? It looks like you turn into a tight dark hallway. When you're first walking in, there's a scare on your right, which is your kind of a moss covered figure. It's like is it a statue? I don't know if this one.
See, it's tough to know what it's supposed to be. When you say moss covered, it is like
I think it's
moss,
like an overglow,
like a what is it? A gully suit.
Yeah.
Like it's supposed to be completely camouflaged as like moss. So I'm not really sure if it's supposed to be a statue or if it's literally supposed to be just kind of this jump figure. Right. So it doesn't make it easy to tell exactly what that's supposed to be.
Yeah. There's other statues throughout, so I would kind of consider it a statue. It kind of fits.
I think there's either fair assessment.
ghosts and statues are kind of the things that scare you in this. And I would say this one fits into this statue. Then as you continue down, there's definitely more graffiti, and then you're going to approach kind of like metal barred fencing, and then as you get close to those metal bar fencing, Nancy comes in and runs kind of like a jump scare, and she's kind of screaming for your help, holding onto the bars like she's trapped.
Yeah, she kind of just comes out from out of nowhere. So when you're looking at it at first, it's just kind of like empty bars, nothing really behind it but more wall and space. But when she jumps out, it kind of activates more lights as well.
Right.
So after she starts asking for help, you're going to notice that behind her off to the left a bit, you're going to see this glowing figure. Mike, what do you think this glowing figure could possibly be?
Could she be the glowing mother?
The glowing mother?
Yeah.
That would kind of make sense.
Albright?
Yeah, I'd say that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. You wouldn't know who that is if you didn't do the Facebook thing. But
you'd be like, oh, a glowing ghost.
Glowing ghost. That you probably wouldn't notice because you were more focused on her begging for help. She was pretty kind of hidden back there.
Yeah.
She's not revealed quite yet. Then you continue down and you hang a hard left. There's a boo hole to the left, which is a statue that kind of scares you and holds the stare to try to keep your attention.
Kind of hold your attention.
Yeah, holds your attention and kind of holds it. And then there's on the right, there's a mesh scare that reveals kind of a men's skeleton ghost.
Yeah, so the mesh was originally kind of like a projection mapping of just like a brick wall. That drops off, strobes start, and then behind the mesh wall, a male ghost, like skeleton type figure, starts jumping out towards you.
Right, and then you head into more open room. It's kind of full of like urns and cobwebs that are covered, and the urns kind of like are like shake. They're kind of
they like not just like shake. They're like full on just jolting all over.
Right. So
as in like something's trying to come out of them.
Right.
You could say.
So definitely some sort of mechanic on that. Really cool. Lots of really cool special effects.
Oh yeah, you're gonna hear a lot of cool effects throughout here.
This is the first one. You're like, oh man, like you start to realize like, oh, there's gonna be some cool effects in this house. Then where are we? Let's see.
So after you see the urns, they kind of grab your attention with all the shaking. To the right, there's another boo hole. Where the same male ghost that was behind the mesh scare jumps out at you as well.
Right. Yeah. So you kind of get a second scare from him, which is a reoccurring thing in this house.
There's a lot of multiple scares from the same scare actor. There's a lot of pinball scares.
Right. Definitely back and forth scares. Like, yeah, you get scared from the first one, then the second one, and then the third scare from this first character comes and gets you a second time. They do that a lot.
Like you were talking about the statue. Not only is she a good jump scare, but then she tries to hold your attention. There's a lot of that where they are really good in this house about grabbing your attention one way. Because they try that in a lot of houses, but this house excels at that.
Right.
But anyways, so he jumps out and scares you outside of that boot hole. The rest of the room, there's a little bit left. It just kind of feels like an open space. There's a fountain, a bench in front of that fountain. It's just kind of like a creepy space.
Right.
There's one more thing about this room, though, before you head into the next. So there's a transition hallway coming up, you would say. And I think it's supposed to appear like you're kind of heading into another mausoleum.
Right.
Above this mausoleum, there's graffiti that says, "Keep out." Gotcha.
And then, so then you enter that transitional hallway. This is a very tight, kind of claustrophobic hallway. There's shelves on your left that have like candles and vases and items. They're kind of like in front of like crypts, you would say. They're kind of like, and then on your right, there's also a crypt, like a big crypt, just one big one that says Angus Strickler, Ascension, Paris, 1819 to 1899. And as you're reading it, the floor of the crypt kind of falls down and reveals a ghost using strobes and kind of like a dummy ghost effect.
Which is actually, it's done pretty well because the corner is so tight that you typically don't see the wall drop
Right.
before. Because a lot of times with those wall drop scares, you'll hear them way before.
Yeah.
But you're fully around the corner, caught by another loud scare before, so you're
not really hearing it. Yeah.
Most people aren't hearing it beforehand, so the timing is really well.
Right. And then as you around the corner on the left, there's another boo hole with this character, and then another boo hole to your other left.
Just around another corner.
Another corner with a second scare from that same first character.
Yep.
So another one of those pinball scares.
And he's just another ghost. A lot of the male ghosts are going to look very similar, and he kind of had that same look as the first one you saw.
And then there's just kind of more crypts with items left for the dead in this transition
You see
hallway.
candles, vases, that kind of thing.
And then it leads you into what we're calling room number 3, which just kind of feels like you're outdoor again. You're first greeted kind of with a fireplace on the right, and then you kind of head into like it feels like another arch, mausoleum arch. There are boo holes there that are just big enough for faces, and that reveals what we're going to be calling. I think we've called them as the smiling ghost before. I think officially they're called the Grinners, right?
I don't know if they have an official name, but I feel like most people go by
The
Grinners.
Grinners.
So basically, they're just ghosts that have that really creepy, the creepy clown smile.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I'd compare it to, like the really creepy large smile, and it's just glued to their face.
Right. These guys definitely scared the crap out of people.
Oh, they were because and what was great about them. Actually, tell them what they do next before I tell you what's great about. So.
Oh, okay. So then they, then you, let's see, where is it?
So after you see their still faces.
Oh yeah, as you see their still faces, you continue kind of forward, and then they pop out and they reveal their whole body.
Exactly. So they do have a full scare after.
Right.
The great thing about these scare actors is that their faces were so creepy. You didn't need the full body scare.
No,
just them staring at you. Like it's not even like them jumping into the hole. They're just in the hole waiting. So when you walk in there, you see them, but when you look them in the eyes, you're like, these guys are absolutely terrifying.
Right.
And then they give you a full body scare after. Just another example of them using pinball scares, because they're on each side of you. So you're kind of focused on the one on the left first, and you kind of peek the one on the right because he's a little bit more advanced. Then the one on the left does a full body scare around the corner.
Right. All right. When you turn a corner, and then there's kind of more tombs and candles, and then you take a left and head into what we're calling room 4, right? Upon stepping into this room, there's a kind of a large vertical tomb with a projected face kind of out in the distance. As you advance, there's a bigger opening with strobes, and then that face is
becomes like a full figure standing out there.
Then you continue down, and this leads into an open area with like kind of like dead trees and moss, filled with an open tomb, which is dark until a light trigger reveals a dummy skeleton. All right, and then you continue from there, and you take a right, and then there's a sound, like a large sound effect of like cracking stone, and then there's a ghost boo hole where a ghost jumps out. That's a really good scare right there.
Oh yeah, it is. And I think from this point, the house only intensifies.
Right.
And this is where you get a lot of the what you can probably call iconic moments of the house.
Yeah, and I think at this point, people are already like, because of all those pinball scares, people just want to get out.
So it's great because this house, not only does it not let up, it scares the shit out of you and then kicks it up a notch after that.
Right, it just keeps going. The first time I went in, this was like, okay, this was fun, but now
I'm kind of ready to leave.
I'm ready to go.
But I think this is the point where you can start saying the deadlocks in the line where it starts to really back up. They really start to occur right here in room number 5.
Right. So then you enter room number 5. You're greeted with candles along the wall. Right in front of you, you see Nancy. And before you approach her, there's a boo hole where a ghost jumps out of a really well hidden boo hole. And then as you approach Nancy, you realize that Nancy is FaceTiming her mother, and Nancy appears to be in either dead or about to die.
Yeah, no, we must say she's in a coffin already, like she's vertically in a coffin. Her mouth is gaping open, like I don't even know how to describe, like cartoonishly wide.
Yeah, like she's frozen. Yeah, like and as you approach the phone, the Nancy's mom actually starts to kind of interact with you and plead with you and be like,
why aren't you helping
my daughter? Why are you helping my daughter? Who are you?
Yeah. And she's asking her, "Is Nancy? Are you okay? What's up?
Right.
What's going on?" Really cool touch.
Yeah,
that I think
really
a lot of people enjoyed.
Yeah, I think this is also one of those things that you're going to remember. You're going to remember the FaceTime phone.
And this is one of those things we were talking about before, where they really grab your attention with one thing, and then you have a great hidden scare to your left as you're focusing on, like, is she holding a phone? Is there someone on that phone?
Right, and then you get scared. Yeah, the scare. You take a right after that into a tight, short hallway where there's a empty, open coffin where a skeleton puppet is kind of thrown through hanging debris.
Yeah. So I've experienced that multiple ways. So you on the right, you do have that empty coffin. It's wide open. And it kind of doesn't look like there's much going on back there. It doesn't look like there's necessarily something behind it. Sometimes the skeleton would just kind of be hanging out, like, across the coffin, and sometimes he'd be completely pulled back into the boo hole, you could say.
Right.
But either way, he's going to be thrown and lunged towards you. He's like a skeleton, like you said, a puppet. He's like on a stick, I believe.
Right.
And that was one that got a lot of people, which led into another great scare that is of the pinball effect.
Right. So beyond the coffin, there is a jump scare with a ghost. Then you take a right into a tight corner where there's 2 small boo holes that are right about face level, where a ghost hand kind of reaches out at you. Right. This is a really cool effect.
So this one corner, what would you say? It's maybe like 8 square feet.
Yeah,
it's a really tight corner. You get the lunging skeleton on the right. You get an actual scare actor jumping around a corner on your left. As soon as you take a right around the corner, there's the boo hole with a hand reaching out at you.
Right.
So this can all happen to you literally within a second and a half, 2 seconds.
Yeah. If you have space, you might hit all of them. If you're just kind of
you probably will, because the timing was, if you were moving at all, you would catch all 3.
Right. All right. Where were we at?
So the hand boo hole.
Okay. Then you take a hard left out of the corner where you see a mirror hallway directly in front of you with many candles kind of along the ground.
And this looks like it stretches for
this is
long.
I love mirror effects.
Long way.
This one is done really well.
And like when we say it was covered by candles, the entire ground of that hallway appeared to be covered by candles.
Yeah, it was really cool. This room feels cramped with like statues and benches and vines kind of overgrown all in it.
Yeah, I feel like it almost starts to get more overgrown at this point. Like you've got deeper into the cemetery and there are just vines wrapped around everything. And it just feels really tight because of all the objects around you. There's like the statues. There's one of it like an angel, so you really get that cemetery vibe as well.
Yeah, on the opposite side of the hallway, a ghost jumps out of you with the kind of a sound of the crushing stone. Should we talk about kind of the sound the ghost makes now?
So basically, every time a ghost comes out, a good 75% of the time you hear like this crackling stone or like stone like falling, you could say. But you're also going to hear these ghosts. They made a very
like a screech almost.
Yeah, like a screech. And it was the same every time almost. They almost always sounded exactly the same. And I'm not gonna try to recreate it because I'm not going to do it well.
Right.
But it was like a screeching scream.
Very terrifying. I would.
Yeah, like almost like bird-like, you could
Right.
say too. Kind of sound like a little dinosaur or something.
Yeah, almost kind of like a pterodactyl squeal.
But I know those sounds got a lot of people.
Yeah.
The noises they made were honestly scary. And every time they jumped out, you'd hear it.
All right, and then after that, you would take a right into what we're calling Room 6/Candle Hallway. Now, if you've listened to the podcast before, we have talked about this room.
Yeah.
I think it's Duff's favorite room.
Yeah, I will preface this. It is quite possibly. I feel like there's too much to go over to actually decide this 100%. But there's a possibility this is my favorite room in any house of all time.
Yeah, Duff
It
really
is.
loves this room.
And
love
I
it
don't
too.
know. Yeah, I don't know. You could possibly feel similar. I don't know how many better rooms you can experience.
I've only hit it like perfectly a couple of times.
Yeah.
So I don't think my love for it is as much as you, but I know you've hit it really perfect. Like
Get the
quite-
exact timing you should get. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is one of
I'll
the.
let you talk about this room.
That one of the detractors is that timing does matter. The way we're going to describe this is if you're hitting it timed near perfectly, at least. So basically, you're going to be walking into what is a pretty dark hallway. Along the sides, you're going to have candles along walls. There's like little step-ins just along the wall. There's like 4 of them, 2 on each side. There's just flickering candles slightly lighting that area. Suddenly, you're going to hear the ghost mother say, "Why have you defiled our places of rest?" She has a very creepy voice, by the way. That was executed well.
Yeah, it's like a whisper, but like
it's kind of like a whispering, stern, terrifying sound. Then you hear kind of like the whistling of a wind, and then progressively, from where you're standing, the candles blow out, each step-in section at a time until the very end. Let me tell you, this effect terrified everyone I saw in front of me. Every single time. The reaction was usually, hell no. Absolutely not. This is not happening. I'm closing my eyes and I'm running.
Right. No, if you get
or
timed
stopping, one of the two.
It's just so awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So midway through, in like one of the step-ins in the walls, there's a statue where if you get this timed correctly, it's dark by the time you hit that. All the candles have blown out. You hear one of those patented screeches that they make. The statue lunges at you from nearly pitch black, and it's a great scare. But that is far from all in this room.
No, there's much more.
No. So you look just a bit further down. You're near the end of the hallway at this point, and you notice that there's a wall with, what is it, 9, 12 like doll-looking figures, backlit by candles. As you start approaching these candles, you hear the ghost mother, like in that whispering, creepy voice, say, "My children." And you're already terrified because you heard her say that. You're like, hold on a minute. So then the candles by each doll kind of get brighter for a moment, and their heads lift up towards you of each doll. You hear that loud swoosh of the wind again. All the candles go out. Immediately to your left, there's a scare actor that's a ghost that's can't even be 5 feet. There's no way they're 5. They're
very
like
small.
Very small. Jumps out just to your left as you're staring directly in front of you. And I said I didn't see many people fall this year. This was the number one spot I watched people fall.
Right. Yeah, there was very well done. And also, while all this is going on, there's like an ominous version of like "Ring Around the Rosie."
Yes.
It's like playing.
So
in the background.
it's like, so right after, so if you're timing it perfect, right after you get the statue scared, the lights slowly flicker, the candles slowly flicker back on. There's a couple second pause, and once you're near the dolls, you start hearing a very ominous, like, high-key piano version of Ring Around the Rosie start playing. Yeah. And, yeah. If you're one of those people who's scared of, like, children in like horror movies, good luck. Good luck. And good luck in the next room too.
Yes. I'll let you take the next room too, because I know from this point on, this is kind of your baby. Like this
okay,
is
fair enough. So after this room, you're kind of coming around a corner, and you're going to come into this big open space of a room, and it's actually 2 stories. Again, we're going to act as if you kind of timed this perfectly how it's supposed to be experienced. You're going to see children all over the place. What you'll find is some of these are static dummies. Some of them are real scare actors. There's going to be lights that kind of slowly flash around the room. The room's pretty dark. The lights are kind of just like very low, like purples and blues to keep it pretty dark. And while that's playing, you're going to hear them either ring around the rosy again. Children actually singing this time. Or they say Red Rover, Red Rover.
terrifying.
Yeah, it's horrifying. I do not want to come on over, actually.
No, I do not. I'm not going to run come on over.
The lights will flash and go out, and then the real scare actors will jump out. And this room was done very well again. I don't know if I have any complaints about this room or any of the previous rooms, to be honest.
I know this is probably some of the scariest room for some people.
Oh, yeah.
Like some people at this point, they were just like...
Like, if you are one of those people who just does not handle children
right.
in horror, this room will ruin you.
Yeah.
But after that, you're going to start to exit the room around the right. If you look directly above you, you are going to find Sid. He's kind of like pinned to the top of an arch. He's definitely dead at this point.
Yeah. So you finally get to see what happens to Sid.
You found his fate, and he's still gripping his spray paint can. It kind of has that whole like cartoony mouth open thing,
right,
like you saw with Nancy before. You're going to turn a corner to the left, a very tight corner, and look up, and you'll also find Nancy again.
Yeah.
Kind of looking the same.
It's kind of a weird angle to see Nancy. You're looking up, like,
yeah, she has
her legs are kind of like short skirt. Yeah, it's kind of odd if you look up and you're kind of just like her legs are kind of like half open.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable.
Anyways,
very uncomfortable.
Yeah. But she's kind of like wrapped in vines to be pinned up there. And she's holding her phone still, this time with the iPhone dead battery logo.
Right.
So it's over. Her mom maybe found out what happened to her.
Yeah.
Don't know, but she's not there anymore. And this is going to lead us into what we're going to call Room 8.
Yes, so Room 8, then you around the left corner reveals a little girl to the left who's saying, "Play with us." Then the strobe lights flashes and lunges at the guest as a dynamic voice repeating to play with her.
And this was kind of terrifying. Just you see this little girl and she's, play with... It's like, it's creepy.
Yeah.
And then when she lunges, like, play with us.
Yes. She goes from 0 to 60 very quickly.
Yes, it's great.
Around the corner, there is to the right. There's a strobe flash, and a ghost jumps out after being on his hands and knees. So this is kind of like a floor scare.
Sort of. So he's kind of hiding like behind a wall on his hands and knees. So he's kind of like lunging up at you.
Yeah.
So I'd call it kind of a floor scare, but he comes up and stands in the end.
Right. Then you enter arches that finally reveal Evangeline's tomb. Yep. So you kind of made it to the end.
You're in the center of the graveyard at this point.
Walking through an overgrown, empty hall leads you to a room on the right. Then you enter into probably the reason why it was so backed up.
100%.
Which we are going to call Room 9, which is the pitch black hallway. Where it was like literally a pitch black room. There was no lights, where all you could hear around you and like kind of bouncing back and forth and into each ear, like different "play with us, I'm here."
I'm pretty sure at some point I've heard like "help us," and stuff like that.
I don't know how they did this. This was like,
but the way, the depth perception of your hearing is I don't know if that's, but like it literally sounds like the kids are whispering.
Right
they're coming
into
closer.
your ear.
They're further away. They're coming closer to you.
It's really
and it's absolutely pitched. So basically, the reason this backed up is because there were certain guests who would take a step into the room and say, "Yeah, no, not doing it," and would literally step out of the room and just stand there and say, "I'm not going in there."
Right.
It is pitch black. I hear children. And like it's so pitch black that you can't see the end when you step in.
No, you can't.
So you are literally just walking through a pitch black.
It feels like you're gonna have to walk through it until you don't know how long it's gonna be.
And it's not one of those things where like you can like feel the edges around you. It just feels like this open, dark space.
Yeah, and you can't tell where it's gonna end.
No,
you just have to.
Not until you're already like into it enough where you've committed.
Right.
And people got absolutely terrified, and I watched multiple guests have to get escorted out by team members through a back door because they refused to go through that hallway.
Yeah. Exiting the dark hall, you take a sharp right and come face to the glowing mother, where the angel music still plays. Strobes flash, and underneath the glowing mother, as a ghost jumps from underneath her, then you take a left surrounding by skulls and bones stuck into the walls, and then you reach, finally, the exit of the house, and you are ready for the exit.
Yeah.
It's not one of those where you were like, man, I wish this was longer.
I think most people lucked out that last scare isn't very intense. Right. Because when he said the scare comes from underneath the statue, like it really does, and it's just kind of like the arm and head coming out a bit. Right. It's not really, doesn't feel like it's lunging at you fully. So like that's actually probably one of the weakest scares in the entire house. Yeah, the final one.
Definitely.
But you do finally get like a full face-on encounter with the glowing mother.
Right. All right. So that is kind of the walkthrough of the house. Now we kind of wanted to go kind of have like different. How do we describe these? Like different.
So kind of different factors.
Right, factors or
ways
scales,
to rate the house.
Rate the house, and we're gonna go do these each one, and these are kind of our opinions.
And then also remember that within these categories, it's not kind of like a cumulative. Like you can't add these numbers up and go, "That's the level this house was." So you're gonna have certain houses where one of the scales is really low, but it's still an amazing house because just didn't need that.
Right.
You're gonna have others where honestly the scales are mainly higher, but overall the house was not as good.
So the first one is scary scale. So this is going to be on a 1 to 10 scale. Duff, how would you rate from 1 being something that's not scary at all, like I don't know, like a really really cute puppy that comes up and licks your face, to 10, which is something super scary.
You're about to die.
Yeah, something very terrifying. Like that puppy is about to lick your face and then reveals that the puppy's tongue is covered with a bunch of needles that you don't know where they've been, and they're about to infect you.
It's still a puppy, so it wouldn't be a 10 for me. But anyways, one way I'm going to look at the scary scale is not necessarily fully how I felt about that, but watching other people throughout the houses and how much it scared them. For me, Graveyard Games has to be at least a 9.
Yeah,
this house
definitely
terrified people. We were talking about, they simply had a dark room, and people refused to go in it. They were so scared. I watched multiple people with deck on this one. The way the pinball scares were laid out, the way they grabbed your attention, caught you off guard. So many of the scares were performed so well. The sounds in there were terrifying. The effects worked really well as scares. Yeah, 9 for me, easy.
Same. I'm gonna have to go with a 9.
Yeah.
It was very scary.
And then, for all intents and purposes, we are going to use the same score because it's like our HHN365 rating rather than our personal ratings.
Yeah, and if they differ, we'll probably
we'll let you know.
But this house is not really going to differ too much. Our second scale we're going to rate each house is our immersive scale. So this is how much are you taken out of that you are at a Halloween Horror Nights event and you feel like you are actually in wherever you're supposed to be.
And then if you've listened to our first annual Schmitties
right,
and all the awards we gave out, there was a specific house that may have won most immersive. that house was called Graveyard Games.
Right.
So I think it's going to get a pretty high score.
Right.
And I think, what did we go with in the end there, Mike?
We did a 9.
9.
I would say
and I
it
think
was
that's
very
fair.
immersive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it fully hits a 10.
Almost. I would say almost.
It's not far. It's probably borderline 9.5 at least.
I mean, because it's so long and so scary, like you forget that you're walking through a haunted house and you just went out of there.
Yeah, it's true. I think the only things that they can improve on that I don't know if any house I've ever been through hits a 10, because I'm going to hold it to the fact that when I look up, what do I see?
Right.
And a lot of times you're still going to see scaffolding.
Rafters. It's supposed to be outside.
Once I go through a house
feel outside in a lot of those places.
Hits immersiveness of this house's level and eliminates that, then I'll give out a 10.
Right. The third scale, this one's just kind of for fun. This year there really wasn't anything that really was going to be on the scale too much, but we're going to call it the hotness factor.
Yeah.
So in years past, there's definitely one house that's kind of there to kind of
at least one
titillate, I guess, to be to make it kind of like a PG-13 type of event, whereas there's gonna be some sexy factor,
typically referred to as the hot house.
The hot house. So this is called the hotness scale.
Yes.
On this one, from a scale to 1 to 10, how would this one be?
1, maybe 1.5 to 2 range, just because they definitely put Nancy in a short skirt.
Yeah, they put Nancy in a short skirt, and she's kind of like a goth, and some people are finding these goths kind of cute or odd.
So you might be able to push it to a 2 for that reason only.
She's not
meant to be like
to me titillating, sexy or titillating. Yeah. No, she's not. They don't really lean into that curve ever. But but you're right.
Is that enough to just push it up beyond a 1? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so we'll put it at 1.5.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. And there's probably people who found Sid hot too, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I would say,
but I mean,
Sid and Nancy are too attractive.
They definitely didn't try to make him hot in any way. The only reason I'd say that at all is they tried to make her hot.
Right.
Quotations, is the short skirt.
Right.
And she's also supposed to be a teenager, so like, how, I hope that wasn't their thought process.
Yeah, it's definitely makes you uncomfortable as a grown ass man.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, for sure. Gore factor. So this one's just blood and guts. Not necessarily just blood and guts, but that's definitely a lot of blood and guts. Is going to put it higher up on this.
Dead bodies,
decaying stuff.
Yeah,
dead things. What would you, on the scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this for the gore factor?
I think this would be pretty low.
It's not very gory.
A 3.
I'm glad it's not. They don't really have to.
It wasn't necessary,
and it was still very scary.
I feel like it can get up to a 3 simply because the ghost's appearance was very skeletal. They looked kind of like decaying skeletons. The fate of Sid and Nancy.
I think that's what adds it.
They weren't cut open or anything like that. But they had clearly been. They had life sucked out of them. Like if you watch The Mummy, like the more recent, the Brendan Fraser ones, like what happens to their bodies once he sucks the life out of them. That's kind of how they looked.
Yeah, and I feel like they're not necessarily gory, but just the way their face is like distorted, it's really disheartening.
They become unhuman.
Gross. Yeah, it becomes unhuman, and it makes you feel uncomfortable, so it comes off as gory.
So when we say gory, like, we don't mean the typical, just purely gore and blood. There are other factors. Yeah. And I think that's what gets it to, like, a 3. Right. Because if you looked at it just literally from blood and cut up people, this is a 0.
This is 0. There's no blood. There's no blood. But I feel like Sid and Nancy do feel deformed. Like they are not.
Oh yeah, no, they slowly deteriorate through the house.
Right. Yeah. So I feel for that factor, I feel like it's a little bit of a 3.
Yeah, definitely for
a gore factor. And then lastly, we're gonna call this the legacy prediction scale. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how high do you think that the legacy of this house is going to continue into HHN lore? Are we going to see sequels? Are we going to look back and see this like as being something that continues past just HHN29?
In 20 years, our HHN fans still going to be clamoring over Graveyard Games.
Right.
And I think we decided 1,000% yes, they will.
It was
It's a 10 out of 10.
It's a 10 out of 10.
It is going to be one of those houses that is regarded of the best of all time for a very large portion of the fan base.
I would say their HHN29 has 3 things that are really going to have this probably a 10 out of a 10, which makes HHN29 a really strong event, in my opinion. This is one of them.
Yeah.
Should I reveal what I think the other 2 are?
I'm interested because I'm not sure there's another 10. I think there's very high ones. I don't know if I have another 10.
I think.
I know you're gonna say Monsters.
I was gonna say Monsters. The Monsters is a 10. I didn't see it as a 10, but I think most people agree it's a 10. People are gonna think about Monsters. The other one is Marathon of Mayhem. I would say that is one of those things.
Yeah. As far as shows go,
especially if it never comes back. If it never comes back, it's always going to be remembered as the best.
Well, if you're banking it on that, I'm going to say it's not going to be a 10 out of 10 because there's going to be something very similar.
There's going to come back. So then it probably won't be a 10 out of 10 because we're going to keep seeing it in the future. But if we never see anything like it again, it will live on as being probably the best show.
And I also think one thing that would hold back Monsters is that it's far from the first incarnation. So at some point in the future, it's going to be tough to fully stand out, as you've seen this multiple times, not too far apart. Whereas Graveyard Games is a lot easier as a pure original.
Right.
It's not a sequel. So like a sequel of Graveyard Games, could it be as good? Yes. Would it have the same legacy score as Graveyard Games? No, because it's a sequel at that point. So I think that's kind of holding Monsters back a bit, where it's maybe like an 8.5, a 9 on my scale. Just because I think
there are a lot of people who disagree with you. I kind of agree with you.
I don't think they. For my reasoning, I don't think people would disagree with me. I'm not saying it's on how good it was. It's a full point and a half worse than Graveyard Games at all. Right. But as far as legacy goes, they're just you've experienced other Monsters houses, depending on who you are. We're saying like people have been to HHN a lot. You've experienced others Monsters houses,
but none of them are quite like.
But down the line, you aren't going to be like, man. As much as, like, for Graveyard Games, you're like, I remember that very specific house because that's the one experience I've had of it.
Right.
Whereas with Monsters, it's like, maybe it's kind of getting
together.
Blending, and
I can see that. I definitely see them trying to do more Universal Monsters to catch that same lightning in a bottle what they did with these.
That would ruin this one a little bit more, to be honest.
Right. It would. It would hurt the legacy.
If you're going to have one, say, in 2 years... Right. That's really going to start to blend in. You're going to be like, I remember I really liked that house. I remember these specific scenes.
And you're going to see it again.
But I can't, I won't be able to walk through the house in my mind like I'm going to be able to do with Graveyard Games.
Right. All right. Well, that wraps up our very first house side dissection.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. That was fun.
Yeah. I feel, I don't know, let us know how you guys thought.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed doing this, so I think we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. I mean, if you absolutely hate them, we're probably still going to keep doing them, so sorry.
I
mean,
guess just don't listen. The numbers don't lie, so if people aren't listening, I guess we'll stop making them, but...
Nah, we won't. We'll accept our losses.
We won't release them.
Yeah, we'll make them for
ourselves. We'll make them for ourselves.
Because I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed... although we remembered the house really well, we still had to do research, of course.
Yeah.
I enjoyed diving back in and fully experiencing it again.
This whole podcast is for us.
Oh, yeah.
For the most part.
I've never recorded and been like, man, that was tedious. Ugh.
Yeah, we do this. We would be talking about this, doing this, if we weren't recording. Yeah. So we just decided to turn on mic, to be honest with you. We're revealing just how big of nerds we are.
Yeah, this is all it is. Literally, this is what we would talk about if we were just sitting here drinking beer.
We would.
We were sitting here drinking beer while recording this.
We would be talking.
We're now just sitting in front of computers and a mic.
Right, the difference is sports is not on. That's about it.
That's the only difference.
That's the only difference is there's not some sort of sports ball.
Yeah, no. So if you're ever wondering, do they really like HHN that much, or are they just kind of hopping on the wave and taking advantage? No, we really just like it that much.
We do like it. Yes, we do like it.
And if you like it, remember, reach out to us.
Yeah.
We're looking for, not sure we're looking for anyone for the trivia. Although if you're interested, reach out because we do have people drop out.
Right.
Also, update on trivia. It's going to be bi-weekly.
Right. And we're always cool with having a third co-host for any of these.
We always just want a guest in general.
Absolutely. If you have a house that you really want to talk about and we haven't done a dissection on it, reach out to us.
We'll bring you into that. Yeah.
I wanted to take a moment and just talk about how happy we are with the kind of reception we've received lately.
This has been great.
I think the momentum has really been building. We've been getting a lot of interaction on Twitter, Instagram, a lot of DMs. Keep them coming. We love them.
Yeah, honestly.
We'll try to respond to all of them.
When we say we love interaction, we see notifications on Twitter and Instagram. We're like, oh yeah.
So keep it up. So
keep listening. The listener numbers have us very I don't think we expected the numbers to be as high as they were as soon as they were. For us jumping in halfway through HHN29, we thought we'd maybe get these numbers into 30, and we're already getting them, and it's very encouraging for us to see that. We would keep doing it either way, but it helps us get excited. We're wow, people are actually keep coming back and listening, and that's crazy.
I will say that I like feedback, so we're not getting.
We're not getting a lot of feedback.
We're not getting a lot of feedback. We're getting some feedback. We will take any feedback as long as it's constructive. Yeah. We're not asking for you to review us on any sort of things. We don't care about those.
Nope.
We don't care about the numbers. We're not care about reaching out to any more people. So you don't feel like you have to go rate us on.
If that's
Apple.
What you're about, if you enjoy rating, go for it.
Go for it. We're more just hey, reach out to us in a DM and be like, hey, I love the show. You could do this better. Do it. Reach out to us.
Although,
hey, this didn't work. This did work. Reach out to us.
Again, like we said, the iTunes review is the biggest one. If you honestly think we're a 3, we'll say, you can go give us a 3.
Give us a 3.
Leave a review. Yeah. We aren't going to complain about that.
Yeah, we don't care.
We're not someone who's going to say, don't care. Oh, you didn't like us? Well, just don't rate us. No. Or go give us 5 stars anyways. No.
I mean, send me a DM. Yeah. I would say if you're thinking about, hey, I didn't like it, maybe instead of writing that review, maybe just send me a DM. Yeah.
Do it how you would like.
Do it how that's sure.
We just want to hear some way.
Yeah.
We would like to know in general what you think.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back probably next week.
We'll be back next week. And then we should be having round 2 of HHN365 trivia.
And then I don't know what we're probably another dissection, but
possibly dissection. I don't know. There's options, man.
There's tons.
Maybe we'll pop out with an interview. Maybe we'll pop out with a drunk movie review.
We definitely have another interview lined up. The interview that I talked about, a couple months ago, it's still there. It's just scheduling conflicts. This is a very busy person. They have 7 jobs. I'm not lying. So it's just hard to get our schedules lined up with this person. But it'll happen. We'll have an interview with this character. It's coming. So they're still interested. We're still interested. It's just getting the schedules lined up.
We have a lot coming down the pipeline. We don't know what we're going to bring you next. We usually don't till a few days before, just because that's how schedules work. The only thing I know is we're going to try to bring you the next round of trivia and some other fun content to pair with that.
We have a lot of stuff coming up, too.
We have a lot of games.
I hope
you enjoy games.
And if you don't enjoy games, maybe let us know that now before we start playing a bunch of games.
Yeah. And if you'd like to be in the games, let us know, because we're going to have a lot of spots. Like I said, if you're interested in trivia, just because we don't have the spots open now doesn't mean we're not going to do trivia again. And doesn't mean we're not going to have another game that would kind of fit what you're looking for that we'd put you on the list for.
So if you want to play a game, just let us know. We're going to have a ton of them.
Oh, yeah.
But that's how we're going to fill a lot of this off-season.
Games. And I think that's the most fun way to do it. There's likely going to be prizes involved for each game.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the streets.